Well, there was Des O'Connor, Sinead O'Connor, and of course in the Terminator films, Sarah Connor. But my favourite Connor joins us right now, and he does each and every Friday. It's Van Connor, one of the country's leading film critics and the man who scours the Freeview listings for us, movie-wise, and comes up with some great weekend recommendations, all on Freeview. Good morning, Van. How you been, matey? How's your week been?
Oh, I can't complain at all, Mr. Ross, and thank you very much. You're my favourite Paul and my favourite Ross at the same time.
Well, I mean, most of the Rosses that are in contention with me aren't really worth a rubber soap, are they? I'm joking, of course, Jonathan, if you're listening. Unlikely, though, that is. Now, you have picked and you scooped this one on me. I love this film. Oh. It's on tonight. It's on the Horror Channel, which is showing increasingly good movies. I mean, they run some of the stuff. What do you call? They often run those mockbusters, don't they? Which have try and make you think they've covered some of the big Hollywood. You know, it's a version of a Hollywood super film. It's not. It's all it's made for two penneth. But this is a classic from I think 1983, isn't it? It's David Cronenberg, the great Canadian horror director, Twisted Mentality director, and it's Videodrome. What a cast this has got.
Yeah, this movie is literally as old as me. David Cronenberg released two movies the year I was born. One was this, the other was The Dead Zone, starring Christopher Walken.
And that's a great film. There was a spin-off TV series of that, wasn't there? But the original Christopher Walken film, based on the Stephen King book with Martin Sheen, another masterpiece, that film, I think.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, brilliant. It gets better with age as well because the story becomes more relevant. But Videodrome, again, another one that becomes actually kind of more relevant with time. Good old Cronenberg, being who he is. This stars James Woods, back when, you could get away with casting him in movies because it was, 30, 40 years ago. And he is the young upstart TV executive, I think he's set Canada, I think, looking for the next hip, cool thing to put on his network. Remembering, of course, that this is 1983, he starts to delve into the then relatively new world of VHS and the creepy otherworldly delights that he comes across on the fringes of good taste. Through Debbie Harry's character, he is introduced to a new show called Videodrome, which is a new show that basically what's the term?
Kind of manifests. Manifests mutated human forms and extra additions to your body.
Exactly, that's the idea is when something that you watch warps your mind, this is the literal physical manifestation of that. James Wood starts to undergo a physical transformation that are the literal representation of his mind being warped as he's sucked more and more into this twisted world. Incidentally, having a David Cronenberg this week is kind of fitting with the passing of Ivan Reitman because he started out producing Cronenberg movies in Canada with Rabid and Shivers. So it's nice that we get to talk about a Cronenberg movie at least, and it's a classic as well. So I've got a clip for you of James Wood, sadly not with Debbie Harry. It's hard to find something that's dialogue driven for a clip from Videodrome, but I have managed to find you something. See this tonight, Horror Channel 1050. As you say, Paul, it's a great movie, one you would have picked yourself, so that's the ultimate seal of approval for me. But here's James Wood getting to the bottom of the mystery of Videodrome. Long live the new flesh.
My father helped to create Videodrome. He saw it as the next phase in the evolution of man as a technological animal. When he realized what his partners were going to use it for, he tried to take it away from them. And they killed him. Quietly. At the end, he was convinced that public life on television was more real than private life in the flesh. He wasn't afraid to let his body die.
Tell me about my Videodrome problem.
My father knows much more about it than I do. Listen to him.
All hail the new flesh. That's tonight, 10:50 on the Horror Channel. Meanwhile, I've gone for the film that is now routinely voted, if those honorariums mean anything, the greatest movie ever made. It's certainly, I would say, Sir Alfred Hitchcock's greatest film, which is saying something. Made and released in 1958. It stars James Stewart and a late addition to the cast. I think Vera Ellen was originally cast and then fell pregnant. Kim Novak, who never much of an actor, without being rude about her, and slightly kind of placid. This really works in this film because it's basically about twisted obsessive love. James Stewart's character, and James is playing very much against type, James, like I know him, against type in this. He plays a man who's experienced the kind of, fear of heights, vertigo, which leads to the death of another person. That haunts him, of course. He's trying to get his life as a retired and injured police officer back on some kind of track, and he takes a job as a private eye, looking out for and looking after a wealthy man's wife who seems to have developed an unhealthy fixation on a woman from the past. There's a suicide attempt, then there is a death, and then there are questions because the dead woman supposedly's lookalike turns up. Nothing like the original, except resembling her in every single detail. This is, without a shadow of it, whether it's the greatest of all time is, of course, open a huge pub debate. This is, though, again, if people have never seen this, make sure you catch it. I must have seen this 2 or 3 dozen times, and it never gets stale. It's just such a disturbing, but at the same time hypnotic film, and beautifully shot. Amazing camera work in this film, Van.
Oh, it's an absolute stunner. I mean, one of the most iconic movies ever made, in my opinion. I think one that everyone, I think, always goes to as kind of the de facto Hitchcock movie. I mean, if it's not Psycho, then it's usually Vertigo.
Yeah.
And if memory serves, I think there was a rift formed between James Stewart and Alfred Hitchcock on this. I think because he blamed him for the financial disappointment of Days Gone By. So there was a whole contention as to whether or not to put James Stewart in this. Incidentally, when you said the greatest movie ever made, I briefly panicked and thought that I had missed The Shawshank Redemption being on TV. But so thanks for that.
Or indeed carry on up the Khyber. You never know.
Exactly.
These gems escape and elude us.
Exactly that. But I'm looking forward to seeing this again, actually. I haven't seen it in a few years. I'd quite like to watch Vertigo again, so I will watch this tonight.
It's on Film 4 at 1:40, Film 4+1, of course, at 2:40 this afternoon. Do set your clocks for it, folks, or recorders for it if you've never seen it. It really is amazing. And in fact, I mean, Brian De Palma, who's another great director from around the time of Cronenberg, leapt to fame as an indie in the late 70s. Basically, his whole career, the early days, were meditations on Hitchcock films. And if you've never seen a film called Body Double, directed by Brian De Palma, it's a kind of mad 80s, Frankie Goes to Hollywood turn up in it, but it's a mad sort of video nasty version of this film. And the other film by De Palma, I love, Obsession, with Cliff Robertson, also has elements, I think, of Vertigo. It's that influential. It's a belter. Here's the very 1950s style trailer for the film that's one of my picks of the week.
What was the strange attraction that brought these two together, in spite of the dark forces that tore them apart? The specter from the past that drew her to the ancient headstone in the Mission graveyard. The compulsion that drove her relentlessly to the point of no return. The story of a love so powerful it broke down all barriers between past and present, between life and death, between the golden girl in the dark tower and the tawdry redhead that he tried to remake in her image.
If I let you change me, will that do it? If I do what you tell me, will you love me?
Yes.
All right. All right, then I'll do it. They don't care any more about me.
Also stars, of course, Barbara Bel Geddes, who went on to be Miss Ellie in Dallas, in a very different style of acting much later on, of course. And we even use the Vertigo theme often on this show when we're doing something mysterious and spooky. And you've gone for another cracker for tomorrow. Tell us more, Van Connor.
I've got what I suspect will go down in history as being the final film of director Bryan Singer. It's Bohemian Rhapsody from 2018 that, of course, walked away with the Best Actor Oscar for Rami Malek as Freddie Mercury. It's the Queen biopic, or well, that's what they wanted it to be. It's actually the Freddie Mercury biopic. Noticeably, it has something of a strange relationship to the actual history of Freddie Mercury, but it is all about the fun of seeing Mercury and Queen in those iconic moments where they're creating all of these great works. There's a wonderful sequence with Mike Myers, for instance, responding as the record executive, responding to the actual song, Bohemian Rhapsody, and slating it as just this absolute abomination, which is hilarious to us because we know, obviously, the historical context. And it's about Freddie Mercury finding himself, about trying to find happiness amidst this stratospheric shot into the heights of fame. I think Malek's very good at it. I think the film is at its strength when it's dealing with Queen as a band, which is something noticeable. If you go into the history of the development of the film, Roger Taylor and Brian May, I think, have been a bit disruptive in the development, particularly with Sacha Baron Cohen, who had been the lead first and wanted to make a much more warts and all biopic. This is a lot more family friendly comparatively. I wouldn't necessarily describe it as a family film, but it is slightly more family friendly. But as I say, it's got the music, it's got the chops, it's got the grandeur that you'd expect from having Bryan Singer on board. And if you've seen him do Valkyrie, his Nazi movie, you saw how he played with scale in that film. He does something quite similar here, and his scenes of recreating Live Aid are absolutely tremendous and worth the movie on their own. And so you can see this on Channel 4, sorry, not Film 4, Channel 4 on Saturday night, 9 p.m. I've got a clip for you of Brian May and Freddie Mercury and the rest of Queen hashing out what will become one of their most iconic songs, We Will Rock You.
Here we go.
I want to give the audience a song that they can perform. So what can they do? Imagine thousands of people doing this in unison. Huh? Well,
what's the lyric?
Wow, so I mean, I must say I preferred the Elton John biopic because it was more fun and wilder and probably more, should we say, honest about some of the roads that Elton's choices took him down. But it's still a great old movie, almost an old-fashioned biopic, I think, isn't it, Bohemian Rhapsody? But no, worth watching, nonetheless. Now, I've gone for a film for Saturday. I've got a trailer or clip for it because basically it's a film noir from 1948, directed by one of my favourite directors, a real kind of Hollywood outsider, although he made some big hits. He directed Rebel Without a Cause, James Dean's second and best film. He also directed, for me, one of Humphrey Bogart, he's my favourite actor, Humphrey Bogart, one of Humphrey Bogart's greatest films called In a Lonely Place. Very disturbing film indeed, about Hollywood and the seamy side of Hollywood. And then, of course, he made They Live by Night before those in 1948. It's a kind of criminal couple on the run. Well, the criminal on the run is played by Farley Granger, one of the near misses of Hollywood, who turns up working for Hitchcock in Strangers on a Train. And there are other people in there. It's very, it looks like it was all shot on location. It probably wasn't. And basically it's a kind of precursor of all those young, doomed, criminal on the run films. A great film with black and white photography to absolutely die for. Absolute belter, this movie. And it's one of those films that is often cited as launching the whole, or helping launch the whole film noir subgenre of kind of often doomed melodramas looking at the seamy side of American life. So, cracking film. And by the way, I think also on this weekend, if you hunt it down, Nicholas Ray's Western, Joan Crawford eating the scenery in Johnny Guitar, which is another absolutely cracking film with Sterling Hayden. So, I haven't got a clip for this one, but I have got a clip for my final recommendation from 1969, directed by Ken Loach. Improvised acting in it. Many scenes filmed absolutely on location. Set up north, of course. Is on Talking Pictures TV, 9:05. I stand corrected. Sunday night is They Live by Night. My Saturday recommendation, I have got a clip for, it's on tomorrow. It's on Talking Pictures TV, 9:05. It's Kes from 1969, and it's based on a novel called A Kestrel for a Knave, because back in the old days, only the posh nobility could have falcons. If you were a knave, like you and me, Van, or certainly like me, I would be allowed a kestrel. And this is about a young lad from a mining family. Nothing's going right for him, poverty-stricken, not looked after at school, a real kind of outsider. And he forms a bond with the kestrel, and it's moving, poetic. Be warned, there will be tears by the end of it, but it's an absolutely beautiful film. It's a kind of, it's Britain's final, full stop to that kind of cinema verite stuff. So to correct myself, this is on Saturday night, 9:05, Talking Pictures TV. They Live by Night is Sunday night on Great Classic, but Kes is a great film and is a chunk of the trailer. This is another masterpiece.
Always somebody, isn't there, eh? Somebody who wants to be awkward. Just like you, Casper.
Casper, you make me sick. Every lesson it's the same old story. You've begged and borrowed and skived and scrounged.
You might think it's funny. You might think he gets what's coming to him. You might be wrong.
Brian Glover's great in that, as well as the kind of horrible games master who decides he wants to be Dennis Law when he plays the kids and barrels them out of the way and stuff. So a great film from 1969. That's on Saturday night. They Live by Night, Sunday night, and that's at 1:30 Sunday morning on Great Classic. Meanwhile, another great choice from you, Van Connor, to end the weekend with.
Yes, I'm going family friendly for Sunday afternoon. You know me, I'm not exactly a normal film critic. I'm a huge John Cena fan, and this week is a hell of a time to be a big John Cena fan because we've got the finale Peacemaker just aired this week. He's starred in this movie we're picking for Sunday afternoon. Family comedy from 2019 called Playing with Fire, directed by Andy Fickman, in which John Cena is the stodgy, play-by-the-rules, lantern-jawed, rural mountain fire chief who takes in 3 stranded children. Their parents are away. Their house burns down. They have to look after the kids until the parents can get back after the long weekend. And of course, the kids are unruly, and they're going to teach this stodgy fire chief how to open up and how to be friendly. It's exactly what it sounds like, but the fun comes out of its cast. It's got, aside from just John Cena, you've also got Keegan-Michael Key, John Leguizamo, Tyler Maines in there. Judy Greer is always nice to see show up in anything. As one of the kids, you've got Brianna Helgebrand from the Deadpool series as well. It's, like I say, it's exactly what it says on the tin. You can look at the poster for this and know exactly what movie it is, because it's a wrestler with a white background leaning and a group of small children and a wacky coloured font. You've seen this happen with The Pacifier, The Game Plan, Suburban Commando. Every wrestler has done this. Yep. Every action star has done this. This is John Cena's turn, and wouldn't you know it, he's actually done one of the better ones. I've got a clip for you of the kids running roughshod over John Cena and his men.
Here we go.
Put that down. No shenanigans on my watch.
Yeah, no monkey shines, tomfoolery, or hijinks.
You finished?
Long as there's not a hint of malarkey.
Whoa. Now, if I didn't know any better, I would say that was sarcasm. So why don't we just take it down a notch, sister, okay? Maybe a little gratitude would be helpful.
Sorry, bud. We just don't speak oldsy times.
Oh, my gosh, but she's not stopping.
Wow, that's a fun film. I've not seen that one. Stuart Armour's, he's a harsh critic there, Stuart Armour, through the glass. He's giving me a bit of a thumbs down on it, but I'll take your word on it, Stuart. I'll give it a go. And tell us how we can hear you and Rebecca Perfect, who joins us on Monday in your rather fine podcast, Off Screen.
Yeah, you can hear us from 6 a.m. on all good podcast platforms, same as every week, on the Off-Screen Show, giving you your ultimate guide to everything cinematic for the next 7 days, including new things in cinemas or new releases in general, Freeview, streaming, DVD, our big hitter this week, and talking of, tier-worthy movies involving animals, as you've mentioned with Cass. Channing Tatum this week in Dog is our heavy hitter. And there is a new documentary about Charlie Chaplin out, Paul, that may intrigue you as well.
I've seen the reviews on that. It seems rather good. I should say as well, somebody's just texted in saying John Cena's apparently going to play Wile E. Coyote in some big screen version of Roadrunner. Have you heard about that, Ben?
Please, I hope that's real. I just want that to be real.
Either that or someone's been on the Magic Mushrooms. Meanwhile, they're on Saturday night. It's on Channel 4. It's Bohemian Rhapsody, Queen. They will rock you. Cheers, Van.